friends. Thank you so much for coming this morning. So today I thought we'd do something slightly different.
You going to see this movie?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to watch Smurfs instead. Is that Smurfs, is it?
Smart.
I used to watch that when I was a kid. No, we won't watch Smurfs today, but we will read the Bhagavatam. So, Shastra is very, very beautiful. There are different books within the Vedic literature, and they all have different names. So, for example, there is the Itihas. Itihas means the histories. So what are the two main Itihas? Mahabharata and Ramayana. Itihas is a very beautiful Sanskrit word. It literally means, iti means thus, and has means happened. So in Sanskrit, the word for a historical book is, thus it happened. Very logical. And then there are other historical books in the Vedas known as Puranas. Purana literally means very, very old. Purana also comes from the Sanskrit word Purna, which means those books which make everything perfect. And Jiva Goswami says Purana also means Purna Navati, always ever fresh and ever perfect, timeless. So the word Purana can mean different things. It can mean old histories. It can also mean that which makes everything perfect. And it can also mean that which is ever fresh, ever new, ever perfect, and timeless. So therefore, Sanskrit is such a beautiful word. Sometimes just by understanding Sanskrit etymology, you can learn so much just from one word. For example, in one word, in English we have one word, friend. But in Sanskrit, you probably have 30, 40, 50 names, different Sanskrit words for friend, because there are many types of friends. And therefore, Sanskrit is a very, very precise, very, very exact, very, very beautiful language in many ways. Very logical language as well. Like, for example, a Brahmana in Sanskrit is known as Dvija, because the Brahmana takes two births. First, the birth from the mother, and then the spiritual birth from the teacher. Therefore, a Brahmana is known as Dvi, two, Ja, born. Born twice. But in Sanskrit, teeth are also known as Dvija. Because the teeth are born, they fall out, and then they're born again. Therefore, teeth are known as Dvija. And in Sanskrit, a chicken is also known as Dvija. Because first the egg is born, and then the chicken is born from the egg. Therefore, so it's very beautiful Sanskrit. You can learn so much. For example, in Sanskrit, a land animal is known as mriga. Ga means to gamati, which means to go. So mriga literally means one which goes on the land. That's a mammal. So then a bird in Sanskrit is known as gaga. That which goes in the air. Ka means the air, the ether. So if a mammal is known as mriga, a bird is known as gaga. In Sanskrit, a tree is known as naga. No go. Doesn't go anywhere. Stays in one place. And then in Sanskrit, a prison is known as durga. Difficult to go. Difficult to go into, difficult to get out of. Prison, fortress. So that is very beautiful language. You can learn so many things from it. So the Bhagavatam is Purana, is very, very old. Therefore, here you see the different cantos of the Bhagavatam. And what will happen is that in different cantos of the Bhagavatam, there are different histories of different things that happened. And all of these things that happened are actual events. Sometimes it's an allegorical story, if it's specifically mentioned, but most of the time it's an actual event that happened. So in the first canto, we hear about the history of Parikshit. In the second canto, we hear about the history of Brahma. In the third canto, we hear about the history of Kapiladev, Devahuti. In the fourth canto, we hear about the history of Dhruva, Daksha, Prithu, all of these different teachers. In the fifth canto, we hear about the history of Bharat. India's name Bharat is coming from King Bharat, because he was one of the greatest kings. So, therefore, the whole history, Mahabharat, is coming from that lineage. Sixth canto, we hear the history of Ajamil, Vritrasura. Yesterday we spoke about Chitraketu. Seventh canto, we hear about the history of Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad, Nrsimhadev. Eighth canto, we hear many different histories about the churning of the milk ocean, about the dwarf Vamanadev. Ninth canto, we hear about Parshuram, about Ram. And 10th canto, obviously we hear about Krishna. So, and in 11th canto, we hear about Uddhava and Krishna, Krishna's final instructions. So like this, there are many, many different things in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam about the past, but there is also something in the Bhagavatam about the future. Are you interested to know the future? So today I thought we could learn about the future, our fate, why you may not want to hang around in this world too long. So today I thought we could talk about the symptoms of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is coming. So it's mentioned that Kali Yuga begins on the day that Krishna leaves this world. Krishna svadhama pagate dharma dhyana dibi saha kalau nasta drishamesha puranarko dhunodhitaha. This is mentioned in Bhagavatam. Krishna svadhama pagate, when Krishna goes back to his own abode, dharma jnana dibi saha, religiosity and knowledge go with Krishna. Then what happens? Kalau nasta drisha mesha, the world becomes very, very dark. Purar narko dhunodita, and only those who see the world through the eyes of the Bhagavatam, only they can navigate and find light. And therefore it's mentioned that Kali Yuga began 5,000 years ago. Kali Yuga goes on for 432,000 years. So we're just getting started. 427,000 years left, according to the Shastra. So therefore, the scriptures don't just tell us about the past, about what happened and how we can learn from that, but the scriptures also tell us about the future and what's going to happen, and how we may be able to even understand some of these things are happening even today. So this is actually the Bhagavatam. Just before I came traveling in Europe, I was in London, I went to one devotee's house, and there he had a 600-year-old manuscript of the Bhagavatam on palm leaves, written in Sanskrit. Very amazing. He had one palm leaf of the Bhagavad Gita written in gold-plated Sanskrit, and every single page of the Bhagavad Gita, few verses on each page, had a unique border. It was very, very beautiful. So these scriptures are there. They were written hundreds of years ago, before anything we're seeing in the modern age. But you can see when you read them how they're so accurate and they're so insightful in terms of what's happening in the world today. So, if you see here, this is the 12th canto, and now what is being described is the symptoms of Kali Yuga. So there's actually an ancient story of one man who went to see Yudhishthira. As all of you know, Yudhishthira was the emperor of the world after the Kurukshetra war. And Yudhishthira was known for being able to answer any question. You may remember the famous conversation that he had with Yamaraj, where Yamaraj asked him many different questions. He asked Yudhishthira, what is more numerous than the blades of grass on the earth? And Yudhishthira said, the desires within the living entity. Yamaraj asked him, what is faster than the wind? And Yudhishthira said, the speed of the mind. Yamaraj asked him, what is heavier than the mountain? And Yudhishthira said, the love of a mother, because it creates such a deep impression within the child. He said, what is the most amazing thing in the world? Ahani ahani bhutani gachanti hayamalayam sheshastavaramechanti kimascharya mataparam. Yudhishthira replied, the most amazing thing, every single day people around me are dying. Sheshastavaramechanti, but I think I will live here forever. Kimascharya mata, what can be more amazing than this? So like this, Yudhishthira was known as someone who would answer any question. So once one man went to him because he had seen many things in society, but he couldn't understand what he was supposed to learn from it. So he went to the palace, he went to see Yudhishthira, and as he was going into the inner chamber to see Yudhishthira, Bhima was at the door. So Bhima stopped him and said, where are you going? So I'm going to see Yudhishthira. I have some questions to ask him and only he can answer it. So Bhima said, ask me? I can answer it. The man said, no, I don't think you'll be able to answer it. Bhima said, no, I can. I'm also a Pandava. So then the man looked at him and said, I've seen 4 things in society and I don't understand what it means. So Bhima said, what did you see? The man said, the first thing I saw was an agricultural field that was surrounded by a fence, and the fence was coming in and eating up all of the crops. So he looked at Bhima and said, what's the meaning of this? Bhima said, I have no idea. Bhima said, what else did you see? He said, I saw one person and they had a full pot of water. And what they did is they emptied that water into 8 cups. And then they poured all of the water from the cups back into the pot. And the pot was only half full. So he looked at Bhima and said, what does this mean? He said, I don't know. The man said, I told you I need to go through. He said, tell me, what else did you see? He said, the third thing I saw was someone was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. And the elephant went through the eye of the needle and the tail got stuck. So he looked at Bhima and said, what's the meaning of this? Bhima said, I have no idea. This is getting even more confusing as everything goes by. And then he said, the 4th thing that I saw was that there was a massive rock, a boulder, and nobody could move it. And then one saintly man came, and with the thread of his shawl, he just tied the thread around the boulder and moved the whole boulder. What's the meaning of this? So Bhima looked at him. Bhima said, I have no idea. You better go in and ask Yudhishthira. So this man went in and he had a conversation with Yudhishthira, and after some time he came out and he was very happy, very satisfied. So he walked straight past Bhima. So Bhima looked at him, he was very happy. Bhima said, did you get your answer? He got, yeah, I got my answers. I knew Yudhishthira would have all the answers. I'll see you later. But Bhima said, no, where are you going? Tell me the answer. I want to know, what's the answer here? So then he looked at Bhima and he said, each of these 4 things have a very deep meaning. He said, each of these 4 things signify that Kali Yuga is coming. The first thing is that the fence was coming in and eating all the crops. He says, this signifies in Kali Yuga, the very people that are supposed to protect us are the ones that exploit us. The fence is supposed to protect. The fence is supposed to make everything safe and secure. The fence is meant to be there as a system by which that which is inside can grow and flourish and blossom. But here, the very thing that's meant to protect is the one that's causing harm. And therefore, Yudhishthira, he said, told me that in Kali Yuga, this is what will happen. That the people who are supposed to protect and care and nourish and empower and enthuse and inspire, they will be the ones who actually take away from people. And so he said, in this age of Kali Yuga, it will become very, very difficult to trust anyone. Because in this life, we will get exploited by many people and we will be on the receiving end of injustice. And therefore, it will always become very difficult to put trust in people. But in order to advance on any journey, there must be trust, there must be faith. But it will be a very difficult thing in Kali Yuga. The atmosphere will always be an atmosphere of skepticism, cynicism, always doubting because we had bad experiences. Then he said the second thing is that all the water came out of the pot and when it came back in, it was only half full. He said, Yudhishthira told me this is a very, very difficult aspect of Kali Yuga. People will give all of their love to other people. But the reciprocation will only be half. You give your love, you give your heart, last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away. You will feel like that you give so much to people but they don't reciprocate. So much I've given, but people don't appreciate. So much I've done, but no one ever saw it and no one ever responded. So ungrateful. So that's the nature of Kali Yuga. We live in a very ungrateful world. And sometimes we can become very frustrated because we feel like we give so much and it's not reciprocated, it's not given back. So he said, Yudhishthira told me this is the nature of Kali Yuga. You should not be surprised. But you shouldn't stop giving your love. You shouldn't become hard-hearted. You shouldn't become closed. You shouldn't become a kripana or a miser just because people don't reciprocate. Now I won't do anything. No. People don't appreciate it. No, now I will. No, he said, you must. Although this is happening, you must continue. And then he said the third thing is the elephant went through the eye of a needle, but the tail got stuck. So Yudhishthira, he said, told me the profound lesson behind this. He said in Kali Yuga it means that all the big thieves, all the big criminals, all the big dacoits and upstarts, they will go free. And all the small criminals, they'll get caught. So it's a little bit like this in the world today. Even I think Hitler's PR man Goebbels, he said, if you're going to tell a lie, then tell a big lie. Because if you tell a big lie, everyone will look at him and think, he can't be lying about that. It must be true. But if you tell a small lie, everyone will examine it very closely. So he said, if you're going to tell, don't tell any lies. But it's an interesting psychology. So it's like that in this world, that those who are actually creating the biggest harm in the world, it's almost like they just go free. And people who are doing some small, they're the ones that always get caught. So it's a world of injustice. And then finally he said the fourth and final thing is that there was a massive boulder, a rock, and nobody could move it. And then a sadhu came, and with the thread of his chadar he was able to move the whole thing. And the man said, Yudhishthira told me, Kale dosha nide rajan asti yeko mahan guna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param brajet. This Kali Yuga is too heavy, is too formidable. It's in one sense completely irreversible. It's like that boulder which is nobody can move. But the saintly person who comes with the chadar and that small tiny thread, he said that thread represents the holy name of Krishna. And therefore one who takes the holy name of Krishna, Mukta Sangha, they become released from the influence. And they can move the influence of Kali Yuga away from their consciousness. Param Brajait, and they can attain the supreme destination. So he said, this is what Yudhishthira told me, that in Kali Yuga everything will be too heavy. Life will seem very, very heavy. Life will seem like you're just on a losing battle. Life will look like sometimes you just can't turn anything around. But at that moment, if you take shelter of the holy name, then the holy name, like the thread of that chadar, may just be able to move that which your intelligence, your dharma, your strength, your ingenuity can't do anything. But the holy name can do anything. Therefore, when Prabhupada came to America, in his poem he said, Bhakti nahi, Bedi nahi, Kubnam daro. He said, I have no devotion, I have no knowledge, but one thing I have is strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. Therefore, the man said, Yudhishthira told me, if you have faith, it may seem very small. Just what is this little tongue just moving? It's just like a ship. A massive ship is there, and at the back of the ship there's a tiny rudder. And it just moves a little bit. And if it just moves a little bit, the whole ship goes in a different direction. So the tongue that takes the holy name, Svayam eva spuratyada atashi Krishna namadi. If you take the name of Krishna, then anything can happen. So like this, nice story, no? This is Kali Yuga, and this is what Yudhishthira taught the man, that just by looking around you can understand so many things about what will happen in the future. So we can read. Would you like to read some of the verses? What's happening in Kali Yuga? So this is the chapter. We won't get through the whole thing, but you can read it in your spare time. Instead of watching a movie and chanting japa. You can watch this. You can read the Bhagavatam. It's better than the movie. Sukadeva Goswami said, then, O king, in Kali Yuga, religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy, duration of life, physical strength, and memory will all diminish day by day because of the powerful influence of Kali. So you can see here, as you begin to meditate on all of these, it's all happening. Definitely duration of life is going down. If you look at the average age in surveys, then you can see that actually it's amazing. There's more and more medicine, there's more and more technology that actually people are living shorter and shorter. Nowadays in England, if you live till 100 years, then you get a congratulations letter from the Queen. Of course, it's the King now, but because it's very rare. Who lives for that long? Duration of life is going down. Memory is going down. Now in the world today, there's a huge thing about AI, artificial intelligence. Because basically what everyone's doing now is they're relying on artificial intelligence. So no one's exercising their own intelligence. Anytime you need to get something done, ChatGPT does everything. Even school kids now, they don't write anymore. They just do everything on artificial intelligence. And therefore, even it's a well-known fact that because people aren't exercising their intelligence anymore, even we saw, for example, when calculators came, everyone now very few people can do maths. What's 13 times 12? I don't know. Quick, get the phone out. Because we don't exercise it, we rely on too many external things. And so all of these things, memory decreasing, physical strength decreasing, truthfulness, of course, that doesn't require much to see. Truthfulness going down. Who can you trust? Trust the media? No. Trust the politicians? No. Can you even trust your family? Where there's a will, there's a relative. Who to trust? Who to trust? People. It's amazing. People live together for so long. They don't know each other. Anything just changes. Very difficult to trust. But still, it's said that Kali Yuga is resting on truthfulness. How? There's no truthfulness. Yes, because Satyam Param Dhimahi. Because the Bhagavatam establishes what is the ultimate truth, the absolute truth. And although there's so many lies, there's so much hypocrisy, there's so much confusion in the world, it's still resting on truthfulness because the absolute truth is available in terms of Shastra. So, all of these things, cleanliness, tolerance. Tolerance is like people can't. They say Satya Yuga was measured by appreciation. Everyone in Satya Yuga appreciated each other. Then it said in Treta Yuga, it became more difficult, but people tolerated each other. In Dwapara Yuga, it got even worse. People couldn't tolerate each other, so they started fighting. But at least they fought in a dharmic way. There was principles around how they fought. But in Kali Yuga, people fight and there's no culture. I am fighting for the truth. Okay, great, but with some culture, please. Because we are a being of culture. But in Kali Yuga, there's even if we want to fight, it's okay. But fight with culture. If there's some injustice or something wrong, okay, but do it with culture. There's a way to do it. So in Kali Yuga, everything declines. Therefore, all of these things are there. I'll just read the verses because the purports are quite long. Okay, here we go, the next one. In Kali Yuga, wealth alone will be considered the sign of a man's good birth, proper behavior and fine qualities. And law and justice will be applied only on the basis of one's power. So this is the point. In Kali Yuga, might is right. Whoever has wealth, they're considered very successful, very prominent, considered worshipable. Anyone who has wealth. It's interesting, in Vedic times, the people who were the celebrities in Vedic times were the philosophers, the sadhus, the people who, did welfare work, all that kind of thing. In Kali Yuga, who are the celebrities? Football players, Hollywood stars, politicians, all the wrong people. Some of them are nice, I'm sure, but many of them probably don't deserve the prominence that they have. But in Kali Yuga, it doesn't matter. Anyone who has wealth, who has influence, who has power, and who has popularity, they're considered worshipable. Therefore, in Kali Yuga, all the wrong emphasis is given to what should be given reverence. And justice will be applied only on the basis of who has power. So therefore, what will happen in Kali Yuga is that it will be more and more difficult for the truth to come out. Because everyone. So money has ruined everything. Money is very, very... of course, money can be used in a beautiful way, but money has to be handled very, very carefully. Because they say money ruined the medical system. Because now hospitals are not about giving good people health. Hospitals are business. Money ruined the educational system. Universities aren't about becoming learned anymore. It's a business. The justice system was ruined by money. Because now it's not that the person who's right wins. It's the person who's got enough money to buy the best lawyer who can juggle the words. And even religion can be ruined by money. Therefore, even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who created a religious institution, said a religious institution is a necessary evil. Because when there's institution, then there's fighting for power, position, prestige, all it is very dangerous. And then money and all of these things. Therefore, if you see Srila Prabhupada's general strategy was not to store money. You get it, spend it. And when you get it, spend it again. Because as soon as you hold it, we know Kali was given 4 places to reside. Abhyartitas tada tasmai stadani kalayeduto dyutam panam striyasuna yatra adharmas chaturvida. Kali was told you can stay in 4 places. Dyutam, where there's gambling. Panam, where there's intoxication. Striya, wherever there's illicit sex. And Suna, wherever there is meat eating, slaughter. And then Kali looked at Pariksha and said, but none of these places exist. And therefore Pariksha said, okay, 5th place, wherever money is hoarded. Because wherever money is hoarded, these things definitely will happen. Hoarded? Hoarded? Kept. Stored, accumulated, coveted. Okay. Remember, Asti Hyeko Mahan Guna. There's still a good quality. It's a heavy age, but there's a good quality. Here's more about Kali Yuga. Men and women will live together merely because of superficial attraction. And success in business will depend on deceit. Womanliness and manliness will be judged according to one's expertise in sex. And a man will be known as a brahmana just by wearing a thread. We see all of this happening. It's very, very superficial. Attraction now is, everyone is looking for chemistry. I'm looking for chemistry with someone. Attraction. In Vedic teachings it said you don't marry the one you love, you learn to love the one you marry. Because love doesn't come from chemistry, love comes from commitment. But in this age it's very difficult for people to stay together because the basis of why they came together is the wrong basis. And so the more superficial, the more shallow the relationships. And cheating, it's almost like the world pushes you to cheat because you feel if I don't cheat, if I don't play the game with everyone else, I lose. And therefore, to some extent, Prabhupada said everyone is cheating to some extent in the material world because it's the atmosphere which is created. So like this, so many things. Who is a Brahmana? Just someone on externals. But who is an actual Brahmana? Janmana jayate sutra samskarat bhavetvija vedapatat bhavet vipro brahmachanati titi brahmana. Who is a Brahmana? Janmana jayate sudra. Everyone is born a Sudra. Doesn't matter what family you're born in. In Kali Yuga, everyone's born a Sudra. But samskaret, if you do samskaras in your life and you follow some rules and regulations, maybe you can become a Dvija. Twice born, if you take initiation. But even that's not enough. Veda patat bhavet vipro. Then you have to study the Vedas, you have to understand philosophy. Then you can be considered a Vipra. But even that isn't enough. If you want to be called a Brahmana, Brahmajana Diti Brahmana. You're only a Brahmana if you know Brahma. So it's not just about being born in a Brahmin family, it's not just about having samskaras, it's not just even about learning many shlokas, but it's actually who has a relationship with God. They are to be considered Brahmana. But in this age, just by wearing a 2 paisa thread, Prabhupada says, Brahmana. No, it's much deeper than that. So like this, the whole thrust of this verse is that in Kali Yuga everything becomes superficial. So like this, many, many things are there. I'll read one more and then we can open it up. A person's spiritual position will be ascertained merely according to external symbols. And on that basis, same basis, people will change from one spiritual order to the next. So Prabhupada often said, even when his disciples would take sannyas, he would say, it's not simply a change of dress. It's a deepening of one's consciousness, a deepening of one's sacrifice and service. Otherwise, just clothes. A person's propriety will be seriously questioned if he does not earn a good living. First question, what job are you doing? How much are you earning? And one who is very clever at juggling words will be considered a learned scholar. Just by juggling words. Prabhupada once told the story of Haradwa Basta. You know this story? There was one boy was doing an exam. So there was a question in the exam. Who is Haridwa Basta? So he had no idea who is Haridwa Basta. So he was doing his exam, writing his exam. So on his exam paper, he didn't know what to write. So he wrote, Haridwa Basta is a dobendi lactalized by the plactony of Tinda. There's no translation for that. Prabhupada told this story. This person wrote, I'll say it again, Haridwa Basta is a dobendi lactalized by the plactony of Tinda. So he handed in his exam paper. The examiner looked at it and said, what is this? He has no idea what he's talking about. He's made up some words. The examiner looked at it and said, but he's very creative. Give him an A. He gave him full marks. He said at least he was creative in showing his ignorance. So he just made up these words. So Prabhupada said this is the nature of Kali Yuga. People have no idea. But they masquerade and they speak very, very authoritatively. And because they're able to juggle words and say things in a very complex way that nobody understands, everyone says, wow, very learned. Very learned. I mean, my God, that was powerful. I have no idea what he said, but that must mean it's powerful. So people have, it's just the cheaters and the cheated. Andhayadam dhed upaniyamanam de pisadam vyam mududam nibadha. Prahlad says it's the blind leading the blind. So anyone now who's confident, if you say something and you're confident, everyone will believe you. So confident. Because people are, they don't inquire deeper than the external. So yes, Gobus also said, you can cheat all of the people some of the time, and some of the people all of the time. But you can't cheat all the people all the time. At one point people get exposed. So like this, Bhagavatam is very, very powerful. It's not just telling us history, it's not just Purana, old, but it's Purna Navati. It's ever fresh and timeless because it's also telling us what's going to happen in the future as things come. And we are living in Kali Yuga, so we also, this is not just about the world out there, but it's about our inner world and how we have to also make sure that we don't become victims of Kali Yuga, because these are all the influences that are there. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a little bit of time if anyone wants to make any comments or questions.
Sorry. You need to use it. Is it on? Yes. Hare Krishna. One question about hoarding money. It's very interesting. I understand that hoarding money depends on your varna and ashram. Can you say something about that? That brahmanas, they spend immediately what they get, they don't hoard it, but say if you're a Vaishya, then it's not practical to spend everything.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between having security, having enough for one's provision. Even we see Rupa Goswami, when he divided his wealth, then he also saved some for an emergency. He left some with his family. He had a treasury, so clearly he was saving. I think when we talk about hoarding, what we're talking about is what Rupa Goswami says, which is atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha, when you over-collect. So one must know how much they need, how much for security, how much for safety. And the more that we have over that, you have to be careful, because actually money, I'm just trying to find this verse. Where is this verse? Lochan. You know that verse? The money one. He knows many of the verses I quote. I want to show you this verse. Just have to think. Give me 1 second. Okay, I forgot it. No. It's a Bhagavatam verse talking about how money causes you anxiety at every step. What the Bhagavatam explains is that actually money, if you look about it scientifically, it causes you anxiety at every step. When you are trying to earn it, it causes you anxiety. When you have it, it causes you anxiety because you think you're going to lose it. When you have to spend it, it causes you anxiety. It's amazing. At every step of the way, the Bhagavatam says, money causes us anxiety, but we have such an intimate relationship with it. Therefore, we need it, we have to utilize it. But when we say hoarding, what we're basically saying is that don't, Ishavasyam idam sarvam Yaktena Bunjita, that everyone has a quota. Ishopanishad says everyone has a quota. So as soon as you go above your quota, then what's going to happen is very, very likely there's going to be anxiety and there's going to be complexity. The more that we acquire unnecessarily, it just brings more and more complexity. And therefore, that's what Ishopanishad says, right? One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. So everyone has to make that measure. So when we talk about hoarding, what we're talking about is over-collecting unnecessarily. But it's hard because you know how much is over that everyone has to ask.
It's never enough.
It's never enough. That's it.
For a Vaishya, if you make 1 million, you need one more. It's never enough. I think the solution...
Depends what... No, but not a Vaishya. A Vaishya will collect.
Yeah.
If one is a Vaishnav, they can have a Vaishya mentality and they can always be looking. Like a Vaishya, even if they're a Vaishnav, is always looking at earning money, for sure. And they always see lucrative opportunities, but they don't hoard. They take it and they use it for service.
I think for the Vaishyas, the real solution to not becoming greedy is to take care of cows. Because there's a limit how many cows can you take care of. To change the economy from money to cows and land. That will make a natural stop for the greediness.
Yeah.
I heard Ravindra Sarup say that.
Yeah. There are different ways. Like say for example, we have something, an initiative around the world called the Artha Forum. And what we do is we speak with very, very lucrative entrepreneurs. And we tell them, when you make your business, from day one, set aside 50% for philanthropic or spiritual causes. Most people, what they do is they earn money, they get successful, and then they donate. But in this model, we have some devotees who are very, very successful. They convince entrepreneurs to do this from day one. You say 50% of whatever I make is for a cause. And the most amazing thing is, people actually end up expanding their business exponentially, and just by taking 50% of the profits, they actually end up earning more than what they would have done if they just took 100% selfishly. Because dharma rakshita rakshita. So there are different ways in which even Vaishyas or Grihasthas can ensure that money hoarding, they don't become victim to that. So thank you. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much. I was wondering about the Kali Yuga, because despite all the difficulties and atrocities that we can witness and be part of sometimes in Kali Yuga, I've heard that it's also Krishna mercy that we are born in this age, because for two reasons. So the first one would be that the intention we have could be sufficient and more powerful than our acts for Krishna.
The intention?
Yes, the intention. And also that a spiritual advancement or realization would be, in a way, easier when you take the path than in other yogas. But I don't know if it's true, so I would like to... Is that correct? Or not?
Basically, yes. Every yuga is balanced. Just to give another analogy, when adults play football, then there is a size of the football field. But when kids play football, then what do? They reduce everything. The goalposts are reduced, the pitch is reduced, everything is reduced because they're kids. So everything is balanced. So in the same way, in Satya Yuga, it's like you're playing on a massive football field because people are able. But in Kali Yuga, everything becomes reduced, as we see. Therefore, the process also becomes much easier. And therefore, it's said that, the Bhagavatam also explains, Krite yadhyayato vishnun tretayam yajato mukhe dvapare paricharyayam kalotad harikirtanat. In Satya, it was dhyan. You had to meditate for thousands of years. In Treta, it was yagya. You had to do very complicated sacrifices. In Dwapara, it was archanam. You had worshipped the deity with great attention. But in Kali Yuga, we still do all of those things, little bit. But the real thing is Hari Kirtan, chant Krishna's names. So in that sense, the Bhagavatam also says that the demigods are queuing up to take birth in Kali Yuga. Because despite all the negative influence, Asti Heko Mahan Guna, there's a great quality. So like that. So one time one devotee was like, sometimes devotees get into Kali Yuga Katha. It's getting bad out there, Kali Yuga's like this, like Kali Yuga. You wouldn't guess what's happening in the news, Kali Yuga. And then one devotee came behind him and said, Kali Yuga? Kali Yuga. It's not Kali Yuga, it's Chaitanya Yuga. Is it Kali Yuga or is it Chaitanya Yuga? It's Chaitanya Yuga. Therefore, Katanchana Shmite Yasmin Dushkaram Sukharam Bhavet. If you remember Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even difficult things become easy. So, like that.
So in Kali Yuga, we loss of memory and also in the old age. And I marvel at the mantra is only 3 words to remember, and I think it's great.
Yes.
Only 3 words.
I met someone once at the airport. He said, I love you, man. Your mantra is really nice. Hare Krishna, Dalai Lama. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, you mean? He said, no, Hare Krishna, Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. I wanted to ask if there is any, more karmic reaction between family members than friends.
More karmic reaction
Between
in interaction with family members than friends?
Yes.
I've not heard that. But there is a sense that when we're closer to people, then there's a greater chance on both sides of great benefit and also great misunderstanding like that. Therefore, when we come close to someone, we have to be careful because familiarity breeds contempt. Like once I was doing a conflict resolution talk, so I said to everyone in the audience, put your hands up if you have had an argument this week. And so practically everyone put their hand up. And then I said, put your hands up if you had an argument with a devotee this week. And practically most people put their hand up except one person who was sitting in the front. So he was the only one. So I looked at him and said, you didn't have an argument? He said, I had an argument with my wife, but not a devotee. is initiated. Devotee. That's my wife. So it's interesting that sometimes the people we live with, we forget that they're actually Vaishnavas. Right. Interesting psychology. So I would say there's not per se more karma, because every soul is a soul, but there's more chance perhaps because there's a tendency to become familiar. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else?
Chan Prabhu is here, you wanted to ask him a verse?
Oh no, it's okay. We passed that. That's fine. All right. So if there's no more questions, then we can. It's like an auction. Going.
There's a question. There's a question over there.
Who has a question?
So Maharaj, you just giving us the last parting words that we need to be very kind and very sensitive to each other in the community, because we need to create more supporting collective bounds and nets, and not to worry, and it will work out when we speak and collaborate together here and everywhere. To be reassured that even though it's trouble, we can go through it. Like you said yesterday, use the challenge to learn the lesson, reflect on each other, and encourage each other. Did I understand that well?
Yes. No. Thank you so much. It's been amazing to be here again in New Mayapur. And of course, when we're living in a situation, sometimes we can't see the situation. Someone coming from outside can also, not that we have any special abilities, but just because we come in with fresh eyes, we can sometimes also see many things. And many, many beautiful things. New Mayapur is such an important project, as I mentioned, but it's by all of your great service is flourishing in many ways, and a community is made up of the heart that each member of the community puts into the community. So please just keep giving your heart, your commitment, your time, your energy, your feedback, your ideas, and let's keep building the spiritual world here more and more. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Shri Baba.
His Holiness Bhagavan Keshava Swami Maharaj ki. A couple of minutes before the devotees depart. So Maharaj has been so kind to us. He's given us all his amazing association, as well as his time, his knowledge, his wisdom. So please, one last time we can chant 3 loud Haribols. We encourage Maharaj to come back to Yuma Program as often as he can.
Yes, don't forget.
When you like. As you know, all of our lessons, lectures have been uploaded on our YouTube channel. So to promote the Mayapur Dham further afield, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then we will have more and more devotees accessible to New Mayapur, so then people come here more often, and especially all of our festivals, our cows, wonderful cows that we have, all the wonderful communities and the deities. So please come and do that, so that we can have. Also, there is kirtan at 6 p.m. in the temple room, so devotees are encouraged to come for kirtan this evening. Very, very nice kirtan, so please come for that. And Maharaj, for me personally, I would like to thank you so much for all these years. You've been guiding me, mentoring me. He's been my Siksha Guru. I've been living with him in the Bhaktivedanta Manor Ashram for nearly 6 years. And I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, I'm very, very grateful for everything that you've done. Also to all the devotees at Bhaktivedanta Manor, that extends to them also. I'm very, very grateful for everything that you've done with me, and because of your assistance in educating my dull head, I'm able to impart a little bit of facilitation of courses here in Mayapur and places like that. So thank you so much. Please keep us in your prayers, in your blessings, in association, and please do that. Thank you.
And we have also some of the Maharaj class were translated on a YouTube channel for French people as well.
Thank you.
And still Book of Maharaj if you want the last chance.
Yes, please, still. Maharaj is leaving at 10 a.m. Devotees can come and get at the front and give them a good stand.
Oh,
Shri Prabhupada.